Welcome back to my channel. Today, I thought I'd cover a common accusation made by trolls. That is, their practice of calling anyone who defends a female vlogger of being a simp. You know, as if there is absolutely no other possible reason they would do so. It's an easy accusation, also meaningless since it is always an assumption. I'll also throw in a bonus clip from Heidi of the Philippine Antics channel, once again spouting nonsense. But first, my prime topic. You know, maybe there are other reasons people defend female vloggers other than being a simp. Like in my case, I defend people when some troll is flat out lying about them. I've done it many times. This includes defending male vloggers, but it seems there are more, or at least nastier, attacks on attractive female vloggers. Maybe it's the trolls who have an insecurity problem when it comes to women. And maybe the female trolls are just jealous. This also applies if a guy chooses to pay extra for Patreon or even give super chat donations. It simply isn't necessarily about simping at all. Let's look at an example of people being willing to provide massive help when the woman is in no way going to get donations just because she is attractive. Which brings me to my thumbnail of the attractive young woman who needs help taking care of her property or should be fined by the city. She ended up getting over $900,000 in donations from almost 36,000 donors. Must be a lot of simps, right? Well, not so fast. You see, people donate to help people all the time without it meaning it is just a bunch of guys being simps hoping a pretty woman will notice them. The YouTube channel SB Mowing, which seems to be a landscaping company, spends part of their time helping people in need. So they offer the woman to do the work for free, then go further to make it possible for the homeowner to get more help by setting up an online fundraiser. Well, as it says in the thumbnail, they raised over $900,000 and the money is still coming in, many months after it started. Well, you know many people will say this just shows there are a lot of stupid simps being suckered by an attractive woman. They don't consider any other possibility. And with that, I need to add some reality. You see, that cover photo is only partly accurate. Everything is true, including the donation amount, except the woman, who is actually an AI replacement for the actual woman. So let me show you the original image. You can see this is not some young, attractive woman. In fact, she is not only old, she is very old. So in this particular case, they are helping a very old woman by cleaning up her yard so she isn't fined. However, this old woman needed lots of other help, which is why SB Mowing also set up a fundraiser. Clearly, this is not some young, attractive female that men are simping over. Yet tens of thousands of people donated massive amounts anyway, because people just like to help. Here's what they were trying to do. Build a ramp to her door. Make a new driveway because the old one is a tripping hazard. Put a chairlift inside. Pay a company to maintain her yard for several years. Fix broken windows. Buy a new bed that is easier to get in and out of. All good things this old lady really needs. They set a goal of $100,000. As the money came in and exceeded the goal, they said they would pay for other accessibility issues, give some of the extra money to her in cash, and the rest would be donated to local nonprofits to help others in the same situation. Now, I suspect there are people who will claim the company is keeping some of the money, but again, that would be an assumption. It also would have nothing to do with the point I'm making anyway. So let's look at the donation level at this point as you see on screen. That's right. They have raised over $900,000 for a little old lady from almost 36,000 people. Individual donations are as high as $5,000. Not only that, but at the time I took that screenshot, in the middle of October, the fundraiser had been up for months and is still getting donations. Here's a screenshot of the most recent donations from just the last day. Notice that one not only donated $100, it is a monthly donation. Why? I mean, why would anyone donate more when the fundraiser is already many times higher than the goal? Well, I don't actually know, but I'll make a few observations. First, It sure isn't to simp after a pretty woman, which pretty much proves that sending money to someone doesn't prove a guy is simping after a pretty girl. Some just like to help hardworking people. For example, I give in cash to individuals I know are working hard. Or in the case of Patreon, I do it because I'm getting extra videos, and I happen to like the videos. Second, as for why people give money even when the goals are already greatly exceeded, some probably don't even notice that. They just think it's a good cause. Others may just get excited about a highly successful fundraiser and want to be part of it. I personally think that isn't a good reason, because it would be better to help people who are still in need. But it is their money to use as they see fit. I even suspect some people see it so high that they'd like to see it reach $1 million just because it sounds cool. So, lots of possibilities, but simping after an old woman isn't one of them. Therefore, just because there are donations to pretty women doesn't mean they are simps either. Oh, sure, there will be some simps in that case, but it doesn't apply to everyone or even most. I'm never surprised, though always disappointed, to hear adults playing the simp card, but I do understand how they need to do so. It's just easier than making a rational argument that is needed to defend their lies. Which brings me to Heidi.
Didn't you say the Philippine government pays vloggers for good PR? No, me and George have never said that. We just said there are vloggers here. Actually, it's not really for good PR. They're just on the payroll.
This is just showing how poorly Heidi says things. In this portion, she says they never claim the Philippine government pays vloggers for good PR. Fine. But then says it isn't for good PR, but they are on the payroll. What the heck does that even mean? If a vlogger is on the payroll, they are, by definition, being paid. I'm pretty sure they wouldn't be paid for bad PR. Heidi's statement makes no sense. There'll be more on this in a moment.
There was a big rumor, and pretty much this is for the people that keep talking about us and us mentioning the Filipina P.
So Heidi gives a middle finger to people who keep talking about us and us mentioning P. Well, Heidi, no one cares if you mention P. But some of us object when you post crap about P, like repeatedly saying she doesn't write her own scripts when P says she does. For Heidi to essentially say P is lying, she has to provide cause. Heidi has never done so. So literally, she has no way of knowing if someone else writes P's scripts. Yet Heidi presents it as a fact. I've documented this in prior videos. Or the repeated shots that P can't do live streams, even though she did some on other channels right at the beginning with no problem. It's almost funny to hear Heidi complain about people talking about her crap while she has repeatedly talked negatively about P. Typical whiner. And no, Heidi, it doesn't matter if from time to time you say you like P and then make bogus attacks on her.
There was one point that it appeared that she was at a government building and people were saying that she's part of the tourism board. And she had went somewhere that was dealing with the tourism board when she took her family around. I believe it's been about a year or two. I'm not being precise.
This is typical of Heidi's proof, as I've documented before. First, as she says, it was just a rumor that it appeared she was at some government building, or that people were saying that she's part of the tourism board. In other words, no substance. Trolls, as I've also documented, make stuff up all the time, and then Heidi spreads it around, which is what gossip is. But yeah, P has been to government buildings. For example, getting a driver's license or getting her visa. I've even seen pictures of her going to the tax offices to take care of her taxes. If you've watched my prior videos, you may have seen one where another troll accused her of not paying her taxes, and then, after the pictures were shown of P with the filled out and stamped forms, he declared it didn't prove she actually paid. Trolls have always been willing to just make stuff up. So do gossips. But hey, some people were saying, yeah, gossips. Don't complain when people criticize you, Heidi, when you say crappy things. Then Heidi goes back to saying things that just don't make sense.
But there are some of them up there that have numbers that may or may not be paid by tourism, but not I mean, I guess that's somewhat with the government, but not with the government.
Again, what does that mean? What numbers? Only thing that seems to fit would be if the government was buying subscribers for some channels rather than getting real subscribers. Heidi has made claims about that too. Assumptions are easy. And what does it mean to say it's somewhat with the government, but not with the government? Maybe Heidi should try scripting what she is going to say so we don't keep getting these weird statements. Thanks for watching, and don't let the trolls stop you from speaking out.